In the endless dark of space, there was a hall older than memory. A hall built not of stone or metal, but of light itself. Walls shifted like flowing rivers of stars, and the floor reflected entire galaxies beneath the feet of those who stood upon it. It was not a place for one species. It was a place for all. Inside, voices whispered in 100 tongues. Some spoke in clicks, others in tones like music, others in vibrations felt more than heard. Together, they formed the Grand Council, a gathering of the oldest, strongest, and most fearful civilizations of the galaxy. They had come together for one reason. Not for war. Not for peace. Not for trade. They had come to ask a single question. What can truly be said of humanity? The question hung in the air like a shadow. It was not the first time it had been asked. For centuries, rumors of humans had spread across stars like fire through dry grass. Some stories painted them as monsters, destroyers of worlds, a species too violent to exist. Other stories showed them as saviors, selfless in battle, defenders of the weak. And still others called them dangerous allies, unpredictable, reckless, both terrifying and inspiring. But today, the council would decide. The leader of the council, an ancient being whose body shimmered like liquid silver, raised a long hand. The voices stilled. The silence was heavy, thick, as if the stars themselves held their breath. The leader spoke slowly, each word a weight. We have all heard the tales. We have all seen the marks they left upon history. But history is divided. Stories do not agree. Some call them beasts. Others call them angels. We must decide what humanity truly is. For if we cannot name them, how can we ever trust them? How can we ever judge them? A ripple of unease moved through the chamber. The question was not just about humanity. It was about the galaxy's future. Humanity was spreading, faster than expected. They were fragile in body, weak compared to most species. But they survived. They adapted. And they were everywhere. The first voice to answer came from a towering creature of bone and horn, a warrior race known for crushing empires. His deep voice shook the air. I say they are destroyers. When we met them, we thought they were prey. Weak, soft, easy to break. But they fought with fire in their eyes. They refused to surrender, even when all logic demanded it. They burned entire fleets to protect a single world. They are violent. They are chaos given flesh. Murmurs of agreement echoed. Many had seen the same. Humanity's history was written in wars. Even among themselves, they fought endlessly, never satisfied with peace for long. But then another voice rose. This one was soft, melodic, almost sad. It came from a small, fragile being, one of the oldest species present. You see violence, she said, but I saw something else. I saw them when the storms came to my world. Our shelters collapsed. Our people cried out for help. And it was humans who ran into the fire. They had no reason to help us. We were strangers, a distant race with nothing to give them. But they stayed. They carried our children. They rebuilt our homes. They gave us food when they themselves were starving. Tell me, is this destruction? Is this chaos? The chamber grew quiet. For every voice of fear, there was a voice of memory. For every story of violence, a story of kindness. Another alien spoke, its body shimmering with shifting colors, like a living prism. They are unpredictable. I have seen them fight with no thought of survival, throwing themselves into danger not for victory, not for profit, but for one another. It makes them dangerous. But it also makes them different. Most species fight to win. Humans fight so that others may live. The silver leader raised a hand. And yet, they also fight among themselves. More than any other species, they spill their own blood. Can such creatures be trusted? The hall stirred with unease. It was true. Humanity's own history was filled with civil wars, betrayals, greed. They could unite to protect, but they could just as quickly turn against one another. The bone and horn warrior spoke again, his tone sharp. They are a contradiction. They bring life, and they bring death. They heal, and they destroy. They are beasts pretending to be angels. The fragile elder shook her head. No, they are not pretending. They are both. The words hung in the air. Both. The idea unsettled many. Most species could be named in simple words. The Veth were conquerors. The Selari were builders. The Ketheri were dreamers. But humans, what were they? The council leader leaned forward. His silver form shimmered brighter, like a star flaring. Then let us hear more. Bring forth the records. Bring forth the witnesses. We will look upon their history, and we will decide. At once, the chamber walls shifted. The rivers of light that formed them bent and swirled until they became visions. Memories of battles. Images of human faces, scarred but unbroken. Fields of ruin where humans stood defiant against impossible odds. Villages where humans shared bread with the hungry, even when they had nothing left. The council watched in silence. One by one, the voices began again. I saw a human stand alone against a monster 3 times his size. He was not the strongest. He was not the fastest. But he would not let it pass, because behind him were children. He fought until he could not stand. I saw humans travel through the cold void of space, not for conquest, but to learn. They reached out not with claws, but with open hands. I saw them burn their own cities. I saw them poison their own world. They are dangerous even to themselves. The debate grew fierce. Voices clashed. Some shouted that humans were the greatest threat the galaxy had ever seen. Others argued they were its greatest hope. And still the question lingered, unanswered. What can truly be said of humanity? The council leader watched it all. He said nothing. He only listened. The storm of voices raged, rising and falling like waves against the shore. Each story was a piece of the puzzle, but none fit cleanly. Humanity was not one thing. It was many. Too many. At last, the leader raised his hand again. The chamber fell silent. We are no closer to an answer than before. But the truth must be found. We cannot call them friend, nor call them enemy, until we know what they truly are. We must see more. We must go deeper. The walls shifted again. More visions appeared. More stories waited. The council leaned forward, every eye fixed on the light. And so began the long search for the answer. The answer to the question that had haunted every star, every world, every voice that had ever spoken of them. What can truly be said of humanity? The chamber grew darker. The visions sharpened. And the story began. The council chamber was silent again. The walls of light rippled with visions, but none of the great voices spoke. The question still hung heavy in the air, and though many had spoken of kindness, and many had spoken of contradictions, there was one truth that could not be denied. Humanity was feared. It was a fear not born from their strength. For in truth, humans were weak compared to most of the species present. Their bones broke more easily than stone-skinned warriors. Their muscles tore faster than those of scaled hunters. Their lifespans were short compared to the timeless elders who drifted through centuries like clouds across the sky. And yet, despite this weakness, or perhaps because of it, fear of them spread like a shadow across the galaxy. The silver leader's voice echoed in the hall, slow and deliberate. Let us hear of the fear. For it has been said that humans inspire it more than most. Not because of what they are, but because of what they refuse to be. The first to speak was the horned warrior, the same who had called them destroyers before. His great body leaned forward, his eyes like burning coals. His voice was heavy with memory. I was there, he began, on the world of Kalos, when we first crossed them. We thought them soft, fragile. We thought the battle would be quick. They had little in weapons, little in ships. Their soldiers were young and untested. My people laughed when we saw them. We believed the battle already won. He paused, his deep voice rumbling through the chamber. But then they fought. And what we saw was not weakness. It was fire. They bled, but they kept coming. They broke, but they stood again. They were wounded, but they did not stop. We cut down their lines, and still they returned. We burned their skies, and still their ships rose from the ash. There is no logic in it. No sense. Any other race would have surrendered. But humans fight long after the battle is lost. His voice grew darker, heavy with unease. That is why they are feared. Because you cannot measure them. You cannot count the moment when they will finally stop. Because that moment never comes. The council stirred uneasily. Many had heard tales like this, but hearing it from one who had stood on the battlefield carried a heavier weight. Another voice followed, sharp and cold. This one came from a being made of shifting crystal, its body glowing faintly from within. It spoke in a tone that was neither male nor female, but something in between. My kind once measured war in numbers. We thought we understood it. Armies against armies. Ships against ships. We knew how much power was needed to break an enemy. But when we fought humans, our numbers failed us. We destroyed their fleets, yet they returned with more. We cut down their armies, yet survivors rose from the ruins. Even in defeat, they were dangerous. For every battle we won, they learned. For every loss, they grew stronger. No formula could explain them. No logic could contain them. To fight humans is to fight something that refuses to end. The chamber grew quiet. Images flickered across the walls, battlefields where human soldiers stood surrounded, outnumbered, hopeless, and still did not surrender. Ships burning in space, yet their crews continued to fire until the very last breath. 1,000 worlds, 1,000 scars, all carrying the same story. It was then that a different voice rose, quieter, but filled with unease. It came from a being covered in scales the color of dusk, with eyes sharp as blades. There is something deeper to fear in them. It is not only that they do not stop. It is that they do not fear death. Not in the way we do. Most species cling to life. Even warriors, even hunters, we all know the instinct to survive. But humans, the scaled being shook its head slowly. Humans will throw themselves into the fire if it means saving another. They will stand in the path of monsters, knowing they will die, because they cannot let others fall. They fight not only to live, but to give life to others. That is why they frighten us. Because how can you stop an enemy who values another's life more than their own? The words hung heavy. Even those who did not speak felt the truth of them. Humanity's courage was terrifying because it was irrational. It was a courage born not of power, but of defiance. The fragile elder spoke again, her soft voice carrying across the chamber. I saw this, too. When the storms came to my people, when the fires spread, humans entered the flames. They did not think of themselves. They thought only of those they could save. We begged them to leave, but they stayed. And though many died, more of my people lived because of them. It is a kindness, yes, but it is also terrifying. For such selflessness makes them impossible to predict. They are dangerous because they are not bound by the rules of survival. The chamber stirred. Voices whispered. Some agreed, some doubted, but none dismissed the fear. And then, another vision appeared on the walls of light. A human soldier, standing in a ruined city, his body broken, his weapon nearly empty. Around him lay fire and smoke. Before him, an enemy force, larger, stronger, certain of victory. And yet the soldier did not run. He lifted his weapon, and he smiled. Not a smile of madness, but of defiance. As though saying, if I fall, you will fall with me. The sight sent a shiver through even the bravest in the chamber. Because they understood what it meant. Humanity's weakness was a lie. Their strength did not come from their bodies. It came from something deeper. Something that could not be measured. Something that could not be broken. The horned warrior spoke again, softer this time. This is why we fear them. Not because they are strong, but because they are stronger than strong. Because their weakness becomes strength. Because their fear becomes courage. Because their death becomes victory. The silver leader's form flickered, like a star caught in thought. His voice was calm, but beneath it lay an edge. And yet, can such creatures be trusted? If they do not fear death, if they do not stop even when reason ends, what will they do when the galaxy stands in their way? Will they protect it, or will they burn it? No one answered. No one could. The visions continued. More battles. More defiance. More impossible stands against impossible odds. Each story added to the fear. Humanity was not the strongest species, nor the most advanced. But they were something far more dangerous. They were the species that refused to end. The chamber grew dark again. Silence pressed down like the weight of 1,000 worlds. And in that silence, the truth echoed. Humanity was feared. And for good reason. But the question still remained. Was that fear the sign of monsters, or the sign of heroes? The silver leader raised his hand once more. We have heard of their fire. We have seen their defiance. But fear is not all they bring. Let us now hear of their kindness, for without it, we cannot judge the whole. The council will see the other side. The walls shifted again. The visions changed. And slowly, new images began to rise. The next story was about to begin. The chamber of the council was still heavy with silence. The visions of battle, the stories of defiance, the memories of humans who refused to surrender, they all lingered in the air like smoke after fire. Every voice, every eye, carried the weight of fear. Yet fear was not the full truth. The silver leader, glowing like a star contained within a body, raised his hand once more. We have heard of their fire, he said, his tone calm yet sharp. We have seen how they fight when there is no hope left. But fear alone cannot define them. We must look to the other side. For many have spoken not of their violence, but of their mercy. Bring forth the records of their kindness, for without this, the council cannot decide. The walls of the chamber shifted. The rivers of light bent and swirled, no longer showing battlefields or burning skies. Now they showed villages, ruined by storms, where humans walked among the broken houses with tools in hand. They showed children of alien species carried in human arms, protected as if they were their own. They showed food shared with strangers, hands extended not for profit, but for comfort. The first to speak was the fragile elder, her body small and delicate, her eyes filled with memories that stretched far beyond centuries. She stepped forward and spoke in her soft, melodic voice. My world was broken by storms. Our homes fell. Our shelters collapsed. My people wept as fire swept across the land. We were weak, and we could not save ourselves. But then the humans came. Not for gain, not for conquest, not for any reward. They came because we cried for help. And when they arrived, they did not flee from the fire. They entered it. They carried our children. They pulled the wounded from the wreckage. They stayed when the winds rose. They rebuilt our homes with their own hands. They gave us food even when they themselves were starving. That is what I saw. That is the kindness of humanity. The chamber was quiet. No one mocked her words. No one dismissed them. For many had seen the same. Another being rose, this one a tall figure of glass and light, its voice like gentle chimes. My people were lost in the void. Our ship had drifted from its path. Oxygen ran low. Darkness filled our hearts. We expected to die there, forgotten, unmarked. But then the humans came. Their ship was small, their crew few. They had little to spare. And yet they gave it. They shared their air. They shared their food. They risked their own survival to carry us home. When we asked them why, they said only this, because you would have done the same. But that was not true. We would not have. Few would have. Only they did. A wave of thought rippled through the council. Yes, they were reckless. Yes, they were dangerous. But there was something else too. Something that made them different. The scaled warrior who had once spoken of their fear rose now, his eyes like sharp blades. His voice was slower, thoughtful. I have fought them, yes. I have seen them defy death. But I have also seen them tend to their enemies. On the battlefield, after victory, they gave water to the wounded who had tried to kill them. They treated their pain as if it were their own. I have never understood this. It is not logical. It is not natural. But it is human. The walls of light shifted again. A new vision appeared. A desert world, burned by heat, where crops had withered and rivers had dried. Alien families lay weak, their bodies starved. Then came humans, travelers from the stars. They had no reason to stop. They had no reason to stay. Yet they did. They built wells. They taught farming. They gave seeds, not weapons. And in time, the desert bloomed again. The horned warrior, who had once called them destroyers, frowned as he watched. He shook his head slowly, conflicted. I have fought them, and I have feared them. But I cannot deny what I see. They do not only destroy. They also build. And when they build, they do not keep their gifts for themselves. They share them. They lift others. Why? Why would a species give so much and ask for so little in return? The fragile elder answered gently. Because they feel. Because they cannot look upon suffering without acting. They are bound not by strength, but by something else. By empathy. By a heart too large for their fragile bodies. The crystal being flickered with unease. And yet, does not such kindness make them more dangerous still? For a species that fights with such fire, and also loves with such depth, cannot be measured. If they turn their mercy toward us, we live. If they turn their wrath upon us, we fall. Their kindness, too, is unpredictable. The council stirred again. Kindness and danger. Mercy and madness. Once again, humanity was not simple. The visions continued. One showed a human medic kneeling in mud, hands covered in blood that was not his own, saving lives of soldiers from another race even while enemy fire rained from the sky. Another showed a human teacher on a distant world, surrounded by children of 5 species, teaching them letters and numbers as though they were his own. Another showed human explorers reaching out to alien strangers, not with weapons, but with open hands, saying simply, "We come in peace." And yet, each vision carried with it the same unease. For their kindness was not safe. It was fierce. It was reckless. They would risk everything for it. The scaled warrior spoke again, almost whispering. It is their kindness that terrifies me most. Because kindness makes them unpredictable. A warrior, you can measure. A builder, you can predict. But a human who loves, who cares, who protects, that one you cannot stop. That one will burn empires to ash if it means saving a single life. The silver leader's form pulsed like a heartbeat of light. His voice was soft now, thoughtful. So they are feared not only for their defiance, but for their compassion. For they are not kind in safe ways. They are kind in dangerous ways. They will leap into fire for another. They will stand against armies for a stranger. They will give what they do not have, and ask for nothing. And such a thing shakes the galaxy itself. The chamber grew quiet again. The visions faded slowly into darkness. And in that darkness, the truth of humanity's kindness hung heavy. They were feared for their fire. They were respected for their mercy. And they were impossible to define, because they were both. The horned warrior broke the silence at last. I called them destroyers. But now I wonder. Perhaps they are not destroyers, nor saviors. Perhaps they are both. Perhaps that is what makes them human. The fragile elder nodded. Yes, both. Always both. That is their curse. And their gift. The silver leader raised his hand once more. His glowing form shimmered with unease. We are no closer to our answer. They frighten us with their fire, and they confuse us with their mercy. They are too much for one word. But still, we must decide. Let us see the next truth. Let us see the darkness within them, for if we do not, we cannot know them fully. The chamber's walls shifted again. The rivers of light grew stormy, shadows flickering across their surface. Visions formed, but these were not of kindness. They were darker, bloodier, more cruel. The next story was ready. The chamber leaned forward, and silence returned once more. The council would now see not the fire of humanity, not the mercy of humanity, but the shadows that walked beside them. And thus began the tale of their darkness. The chamber of the council darkened as the visions shifted once again. The glowing rivers of light that had shown kindness and mercy now began to twist. The stars within them grew dim. The brightness that once carried hope faded into shadows. The air itself grew colder, heavier, as if the chamber itself knew what was coming. The silver leader's voice echoed, calm but heavy with warning. We have seen their fire. We have seen their kindness. But neither story is complete without the other side. For within humanity lies not only mercy, not only courage, but also a darkness. A shadow as deep as their light. Let us see it now. Let us face the truth of their cruelty. The council leaned forward, uneasy. Some knew the stories already. Others wished they did not. The first vision came. It was not of battle against others, but battle among themselves. A great human city burning, towers collapsing, streets filled with smoke and screams. Humans fought humans in the ruins, their weapons bright, their hatred brighter. The horned warrior let out a low growl. This is what I have always said. They are destroyers. Not only of their enemies, but of themselves. No other species kills its own with such fury. No other species wages war against its brothers and sisters as they do. The fragile elder lowered her head, sorrow in her voice. Yes. Their history is filled with such scars. Kingdoms against kingdoms, nations against nations, tribes against tribes. They destroy what they build. They poison what they love. Their own hands have broken their world more times than we can count. The vision shifted. It showed fields of ash where once green forests stood. Rivers blackened by human machines. Entire species of animals gone, erased not by hunger but by greed. The crystal being flickered uneasily. This is their darkness. They do not only harm each other. They harm the very ground they walk upon. They tear their own world apart, consuming it piece by piece, as though it were nothing but fuel for their endless hunger. What kind of species devours its own home? The chamber stirred with unease. The kindness of humanity had been fierce, but so was its cruelty. They gave without reason, but they also took without mercy. The visions changed again. Armies of humans marching across foreign lands. Flags raised over broken cities. Chains placed upon the innocent. Words of conquest shouted into the air. The scaled warrior hissed softly, his voice sharp as blades. They bring freedom, yes, but they also bring chains. For every act of kindness, there is an act of cruelty. For every village they save, another they burn. They claim justice, but they also claim power. They are never satisfied. They always want more. More land. More wealth. More glory. They conquer, even when they do not need to. The horned warrior slammed his hand against the table of light. This is why they cannot be trusted. This is why they must be watched. You have all spoken of their mercy, but mercy means nothing when their hands drip with blood. You have all spoken of their courage, but courage means nothing when it is used for conquest. Look at them. Look at what they do to each other. If they can do this to their own kind, what chance do the rest of us have? The chamber filled with voices. Some agreed, some argued, but none denied what they saw. Humanity's history was filled with shadows. The silver leader raised his hand, silencing them again. His voice was calm, but his light dimmed. And yet, even in their darkness, there is truth. We must see it all. The visions grew sharper. They showed betrayal, human against human, friend against friend. They showed greed that consumed empires, rulers who cared nothing for the suffering of their people. They showed cruelty for pleasure, violence for sport. The fragile elder's voice trembled as she spoke. This is the part one wish were not true. For I have seen their kindness, their love, their selflessness. But I cannot deny what is before us. Their darkness is real. They are capable of cruelty beyond measure. They are capable of hate so deep it burns worlds. Another voice rose, quiet and sorrowful. It belonged to a being of mist and shadow. And yet, what makes their darkness most terrifying is not that it exists. It is that it exists beside their kindness. They can love and hate with equal passion. They can heal and destroy with equal fire. In one moment, they save a child. In the next, they burn a city. That is their true danger. Not their strength. Not their weakness. But the fact that they are both. The council shifted uneasily. For this was a truth none could ignore. Most species could be defined. Some were conquerors, some were builders, some were dreamers, some were predators. But humanity was never only one thing. They were always both. Always contradiction. The visions continued. A human leader ordering the destruction of entire lands for power. Soldiers carrying out cruelty in the name of honor. Civilians suffering while rulers grew fat with wealth. And yet, within those same visions, acts of courage still flickered. A soldier disobeying orders to protect the innocent. A stranger hiding others from death. A voice crying out for justice in the middle of oppression. The crystal being spoke again, its voice sharp with confusion. How can they be both? How can they be the fire that burns and the water that heals? How can one species carry within them both the darkest cruelty and the brightest kindness? It is unnatural. The horned warrior growled. It is not unnatural. It is who they are. They are chaos. They are contradiction. They are everything at once, and that is why they must never be trusted. But the fragile elder's voice rose again, softer, sadder. No. It is why they must be watched, yes. But also why they must be understood. For if they are both, then perhaps it is not their cruelty that defines them, nor their kindness. Perhaps it is their choice. They can choose to destroy, or they can choose to save. And that choice, that is what makes them human. The chamber grew still. The visions faded slowly, the rivers of light calming but leaving behind a shadow that could not be forgotten. Humanity's darkness was real. It was vast. It was terrifying. The silver leader's form pulsed, dim then bright, as if caught between two thoughts. His voice was heavy. We have now seen their fire. We have seen their mercy. We have seen their shadow. They are not one thing. They are many. Too many. And so the question remains. What can truly be said of humanity? No one answered. No one could. For in truth, every voice in the chamber knew the same thing. Humanity was too much to fit in one word. They were heroes. They were monsters. They were saviors. They were destroyers. They were light. They were shadow. They were both. Always both. And so the council waited, caught in silence. The story was not yet complete. One more truth remained. The silver leader spoke again, his voice final. We will not answer until the last truth is shown. We have seen their kindness, their fear, their darkness. Now we must hear the final word. Only then can we decide. Only then will we know what can truly be said of humanity. The walls of light stirred once more. The chamber darkened. The visions shifted toward something new. The final part of the story was ready. And all the council leaned forward to hear it. The chamber of the council was silent. The walls of light, which had shown fire and kindness and shadow, now shimmered in stillness, as though even the stars themselves were waiting. Every being present sat frozen, their voices hushed, their thoughts heavy. They had seen much. Too much. They had seen the courage of humanity, the reckless kindness, the cruel shadows, the contradictions. But still, the question remained. What can truly be said of humanity? The silver leader's glowing form pulsed softly, like a dying star holding its last breath. His voice broke the silence, steady but weighted with centuries of thought. We have seen their fire. We have seen their mercy. We have seen their darkness. And yet, no answer has come. They are not one thing. They are many. Too many. But the time has come. We cannot linger in silence. We must give the galaxy its truth. The council will speak. And together, we will decide. The walls of the chamber shifted once more, not into visions of battles or villages, but into mirrors of light. Each member of the council saw not only the humans in the memories, but their own reflections standing beside them. It was as if the chamber itself wished to remind them, to speak of humanity was to also speak of themselves. The horned warrior was the first to break the silence. His deep, growling voice echoed through the hall. I call them destroyers. I have fought them. I have watched them burn cities to ash. I have seen them turn battlefields into graveyards. Their cruelty is real. Their hunger for conquest is real. If we are to name them, then name them what they are, the children of war. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Many nodded, for they too had seen this side of humanity. But then the fragile elder, her voice small but piercing, rose again. No, that is not all they are. I have seen their hands rebuild homes after storms. I have seen their arms carry strangers through fire. I have seen their kindness shine when all hope was lost. They are not only destroyers. They are healers. They are givers. They are protectors. To call them only war is to close our eyes to their mercy. Another murmur followed, this one conflicted. Two truths clashed, and both were undeniable. The crystal being spoke next, its body flickering with fractured light. They are contradictions. They are both kindness and cruelty, both light and shadow. And that is why they are dangerous. You cannot predict them. You cannot control them. One day they will save you. The next day they may destroy you. They are unstable. They are chaos given life. The scaled warrior hissed, his sharp voice cutting through. No, they are not chaos. They are choice. That is what I have seen. Every act of cruelty, every act of kindness, it is not instinct. It is not fate. It is choice. They can choose to love, or they can choose to hate. And that makes them more dangerous than chaos. Chaos is blind. But humans are not blind. They see. They know. And still they choose. The words struck the chamber with weight. For that was the truth none had spoken before. Humanity's contradictions were not accidents. They were decisions. The fragile elder nodded slowly, her eyes bright with sorrow and hope together. Yes, that is what makes them human. They are not bound to be one thing. They are not trapped in light or shadow. They are free to walk either path. And that freedom is what we fear. And what we need. The horned warrior growled, conflicted. If they are free to choose, then how can we ever trust them? What if they choose darkness? What if they choose destruction? The elder met his burning gaze with steady eyes. And what if they choose light? What if, when the galaxy cries out for help, they are the ones who answer? Would you deny that chance, even knowing the risk? The chamber was silent again. The question was sharp, and no one could answer it quickly. The silver leader's glowing body flickered brighter, his voice rising like a slow tide. This is the truth. This is the answer. Humanity is not one word. Humanity is not one face. They are not monsters. They are not saints. They are not angels. They are not demons. They are human. And that is what makes them more dangerous, and more necessary, than any other. The walls of light flared, showing visions not of battle or kindness or cruelty, but of faces. Human faces. Young and old. Scarred and smiling. Weeping and laughing. Building and burning. All of them different. All of them human. The council watched in silence. The truth was clear. To name humanity was not to name one thing but many. To speak of them was to speak of contradictions. To judge them was to judge freedom itself. The fragile elder spoke one last time, her voice like a whisper of wind. When the storms came, it was humanity that stayed. When the fire rose, it was humanity that carried us. When the shadows fell, it was humanity that lit the torch. That is what I will remember. Not their cruelty. Not their conquest. But the fact that when no one else answered, they did. The scaled warrior nodded slowly. And I will remember their fire. The fire that does not end. The fire that makes them unbreakable. The fire that makes even death afraid of them. The horned warrior growled again, but softer now, his voice heavy with reluctant respect. And I will remember their wrath. The wrath that turns worlds to ash. The wrath that even they cannot control. The wrath that makes me fear them. The silver leader's voice rose above them all, final and unshakable. And so, let it be said. What can truly be said of humanity? Only this, that they are human. Both light and shadow. Both mercy and cruelty. Both courage and fear. Both destroyers and saviors. They are contradiction. They are choice. They are freedom. And because of this, they are the most dangerous, and the most necessary, of all. The chamber was silent. No one spoke. No one argued. The truth had been given, and it was unshakable. The walls of light dimmed slowly, leaving only the stars reflected on the floor. The council members sat in silence, each lost in thought. Some still feared humanity. Some still admired them. But all understood them, perhaps for the first time. The meeting ended. The voices faded. The hall of light emptied. And across the galaxy, the question lingered still, whispered in every corner, in every shadow, in every heart. What can truly be said of humanity? The answer came, soft as breath, strong as fire. They are human. And that changes everything.